Welcome to another episode of Self-Care Saturday with Indy Jones. Today, as always, I have a wonderful guest. And I always say this because it's so true. I appreciate my guests for taking the time. I value my guests, their thoughts, their opinions, and just their presence in the world. And this guest, very special, and she has a lot to share. And I will make sure that you check out her own podcast, and she's going to share that with you in a few minutes. So as always, I ask you to subscribe to the channel. This is great conversations. We always have rich discourse you don't want to miss. And then make sure that you like the video as well. So without further ado, we have Erika, and she's going to introduce herself. Welcome to Self-Care Saturday, Erika.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Erika Easter. I am one half of the Turn On podcast. So on the Turn On podcast, we read erotica every week, and then we talk about our lives in relation to the story. But we really use erotica kind of as a jumping off point, because sex is never just one part of who you are. It's always sex. And so we read erotica, talk about our lives, but then the following week we have someone in to discuss their lives as it may relate to the book. And it's not always about sex. We recently had a story where it featured a man that was recently incarcerated. So the following week we had a woman that was recently incarcerated and talked about how messed up the prison to pipeline system is, and systemic racism. So we really use that as a jumping off point to have really great conversations. We actually featured one of your books, A Fear and Faith, on our show, and it was amazing. I love the book. It sold me on paranormal. So there's that. In addition to hosting the podcast, I am a sex educator. So I really believe that pleasure and learning to love oneself is a form of power and liberation. Yeah. So in my work as a sex educator, I want women to tap into the pleasure that then releases them into freedom. And in addition to that, I recently quit my day job and launched my own business, Pillar Board Leadership Solutions. And in that business, we provide board management and support to boards of directors. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing all that. And I'm glad you mentioned the sex educator, because I did see that. So I was hoping you would share and just talk a little bit about what that means. And I know that your responses today, so everyone know, it's wrapped around all of that work, not just your personal experience, but all those different aspects of who you are. So you bring all of that to this program today. So thank you. So I always start with this question, because I think our gender, how we define our gender, and our race or racial identity, I think all that collapses into our identity and our experiences in life. So for you, what does it mean to be a Black woman in the 21st century?
To be a Black woman in the 21st century. I know this sounds weird, but it's privileged as well as unprivileged. So I feel like being a Black woman, there ain't nothing better than that. Like, we come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and we make that shit look good, however it is. And so, yeah, I see why y'all jealous. I see why y'all hating, because shit, I want to be me too. So there's a privilege that comes in that. However, it's unprivileged in the sense that we are Black, we are women, we are double minorities, and don't add queer on top of that.
Yeah. And
you know, Kenria, my co-host Kenria, likes to describe white supremacy as a ladder, and with white cis het males being at the top. And unfortunately, when you were a Black woman, you're slotted much lower on that ladder. And so I think being a Black woman, you're kind of dealing with the dualities of recognizing that, damn, I am amazing. I am beautiful and powerful, and I have all of this in me, where you're also being told by society, by white men, by white women, shit, sometimes by Black men, that you aren't who you are, you know, you aren't beautiful. And so I think being a Black woman now is coping with those dualities and pushing past that in spite of, you know, how horrible society wants us to be sliding on that ladder.
And that part that you said, in spite of, right?
Yeah.
And that's just really powerful. So my follow-up question to that is, how do you get, considering, like you said, how society may view Black women, not necessarily in the most positive light, in a lot of stereotypical ways. So how do you get to the point where you could start off to say that, you know, Black women, that we have a certain amount of privilege, that people want to be us? How do you get to the point where you say that it is okay to be a Black woman, that there's power and privilege in that, or beauty in that?
For me, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but for me,
right,
I look for it outside of myself, because sometimes everybody's like, it's within you. Sometimes you just don't feel it, you don't see it. And so I am like firmly on Black girl TikTok. I love watching Black women do whatever with their hair and style and all of that. I remind myself of the women that came before me. I come from a very, I hate using the word strong, but a line of very powerful Black women. And I carry them in me. And the older I get, the more I smile and I see my mother in my smile. I, you know, like, look at my body. My grandma always had big booty and big hips and big thighs, and I have that. And so it's just like, you know, I'm carrying a bit of them in me. And I think about the fact that, wow, they came through all of this. They did all of this. I can too. I carry this in me. This Black woman, wherever, just showed me her beauty in herself. I have that same beauty in myself. And so I really draw upon the strength and the power of the Black women around me. And I then make it a point myself to put myself out there, because I feel like somebody's gonna see something I'm doing, and maybe I can give them a little something to pull their strength from.
Absolutely, absolutely. You touched on a couple of different questions, and I think your answer really nicely flows into my follow-up question. So what words, images, or people come to mind when you think of the word resilience?
Ooh, I think of my granny. For us to be talking about busting it open and throwing it back on our show, I talk about my granny way too much. But I think about my grandmother. She and women that were like her. You know, she was born in Mississippi. She was granddaughter of a sharecropper. Her mother kind of was off having her own hot girl summer in the 20s. And my grandmother, you know, left there, made it to St. Louis. She, you know, never went past sixth, seventh grade. But she raised 6 beautiful children, as well as like tons of children in the neighborhood. And I'm a result of all that she went through. So I definitely think about her. I also just generally think about, you know, our ancestors, the women that, you know, that came before us. I actually am in the middle of reading, just right there, The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr.
Okay.
And it is a beautiful book. And there is a part in the book where one of the women, she's an enslaved woman, and she was talking about how she loves herself in spite of what, you know, what the white folk tell her she's, you know, how she's supposed to feel about herself. And so, you know, just when I hear the word resilience, I think of Black women and the fact that we are still here, we are still thriving, we are fucking beautiful. And yeah, I think of Black women.
Yeah. And you have to kind of always keep saying that, right? You have to,
Yeah.
because the that pushback, even where we are now, almost in 2022, you still have to keep affirming that because there's so much out there.
Yep.
So much out there.
You got to keep saying it. You got to keep, it's kind of, I was talking to my brother recently, and I was talking to him about strategies that I've dealt with in therapy. And in therapy, you know, I grew up in a world, in a home where we were going from trauma to trauma. You know, it was a lot happening. And so as an adult, it took me a while to like just kind of calm myself and recognize that the shoe was not going to drop. The other shoe is not going to drop. We are like, I have established a life where everything is safe. And yes, things happen, but let's not walk around bracing ourselves for more trauma. And I have to remind myself, I have to like literally say out loud, Erika, the other shoe is not going to drop. You have built, you were secure, you have all your bills are paid, you have done this, you have done that. And I feel like it's the same way with being a Black woman. Like, okay, y'all are telling me that this is what I'm supposed to look like, this is how I'm supposed to feel, but I know that I am divine. I know that I hold power. And so forget all that you're saying. I am divine, I am powerful, I am resilient.
Yeah. And and I think it's something that we do daily. And it's not always, I think, conscious. Sometimes it is. And we have to be really deliberate. I think, especially if you're raising a girl, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you're a Black woman and you're raising a girl, and I have a daughter, and I remember just trying to just always images, right? The books that we purchased for what we allowed her to watch on television. And so you wanted her to see young Black girls. And sometimes I could get the girl piece right because that's out there. I couldn't always get the Black girl part. And so as a young kid, she consumed a lot of stuff that was a bunch of, white girls. And she loved seeing females, in the shows that she watched, but it was that other piece that was missing. So as a mother, I really struggled with that and trying to make sure that she saw exactly what you said, the beauty and the power of what it meant to be a young Black girl, a young African American.
I have a 12-year-old boy. 12, he just turned 13. So I have a 13-year-old boy.
You gotta get that right.
Right.
Because he's gonna call you on that.
He would probably kill me knowing that I misaged him. But for him, it is also about making sure he recognizes that in Black women. I raised him to let him know that you were a young Black boy. You are amazing. You're beautiful. You're powerful. You are a king. But I also need you to recognize that Black women are such as well. Like, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my Black ass. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your grandma's Black ass. And so my ex-husband, co-parent, he's doing an amazing job of instilling, the divineness of Black men in him. But I also want him to recognize that women carry a richness and a divinity that is also to be respected.
Most definitely. And that's important. And I think it begins with whatever you model to him. So even before the words come out your mouth is really everything that you do as a mother, as a person that he sees. So let's talk a little bit about feelings and emotions. And I do this in the book as well, try to pull that out of people because I think it's important. So if you reflect back on your childhood, what did you learn about feelings and emotions as a kid, whether it was, like we just said, directly taught or indirectly taught?
We taught to ignore them and hide them. I wish that I could say that it was something different, but I think that we took the strong Black woman thing just a little too far in my house. And so it was really it was really a situation. Like, I think I got the in spite of really down growing up, because we just kept pushing. It was one of those, you might be hurt, all right, suck it up, suck it up and keep going. And I think one of the things that I have really learned in my big age in therapy and being a parent, like being a parent really like breaks you apart, breaks your whole childhood apart. No matter how much work you think you have done in therapy, when you raising a little person in front of you, it all comes like, woo, forget that. And so I think I am now trying to make sure that I raise a child that knows that, it's okay to feel. It is okay to have a moment where you just gotta feel and get your arms around it before you can move. Growing up, it was one of those things where we were so busy bouncing from this to that to this to that we didn't have time to sit and really focus on how we were feeling about something, because it was like, okay, that fire's put out, what's the next one? But I'm really trying now to sit in my feelings, to feel them, which is scary, and also teach my son to do the same thing.
You definitely covered, I think, several questions there, because whether you talk about your feelings or not, they're still there.
Yeah.
Right. They still impact you. And so you do have to be really deliberate and mindful. And so that I think you covered quite a few. So when I asked you, kind of like what you were taught or what you learned about emotions when you were a kid, and also, so like, what do you now believe about emotions and feelings?
They're real as hell. They're real. Yeah, they're real, and they're not. And the more you ignore them, the bigger they become. It's one of the things where it's like, let's just address this now. Let's get all the cries out, because we're gonna have to mount up and deal with this issue. So let's get these feelings out. Let's recognize these emotions. I used to always call myself a thug. I'm like, I'm a thug. Fuck that. I'm a thug. I don't cry. Kenria is like, girl, you were the biggest softie on earth, right? And I'm leaning into that more. The older I get, the more I recognize that there is strength in softness. There is there's beauty in, and I feel like I've learned that a lot from my co-host Kenria. Like, she is one of those people that, and she probably would freak out if I like told her this, but like, she's one of those people that for a long time was just like, I got it, I can do everything, I got it, I can do everything. And recently she has started, not very recently, but like, she has started showing that, hey, I need help, I need people, and seeing how hard that is for her to do. To me, I'm like, whoa, you are a strong bitch, and so I think now that I'm getting older, it's just recognizing that those feelings are there and giving myself space and grace to feel.
And I think your example, Kiria, and her growth, it goes back to another conversation I had with two other women far as guests, and we talked about the word vulnerable. And I think that's kind of what I think you're getting at when people just say, hey, it's about vulnerability, it's about trust. And I'm going to ask you about trust in the minute too. But, who in your life do you feel comfortable bearing your soul to, being that level of vulnerable, that you can ask for help, that you can go to when you just need maybe a shoulder or an opinion, or just someone just to listen, because you just need to unburden yourself?
So I like to tell stories. Have you noticed? So in 2015, no, 2016. I maybe it was 2017. Anyway, I got to a point where I was broken. I feel like I had been through a lot. You know, my mother had recently died. I had been through miscarriages, and I was just like broken. And my spirit was broken, you know. And then my marriage fell apart and I started going through a divorce. And that's when I went through some really intense therapy.
Mhm.
And going through therapy helped me open myself up and recognize the blessings that I had. You know, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I live here in the DC area in Maryland. And having my family so far away really made me form a really close and a really close group of friends that are like family. And I have them. And then soon as my divorce was over, I was gearing up for a hot girl. I was like, I'm about to cuddle and snuggle and be a hot girl all fall. I got diagnosed with cancer. And going through those situations really brings your people in, you know.
Mhm.
And, you know, having homegirls like literally help me squeeze juice out my drains, you know, like you I I get a little teary when I think about it because I feel like I am so blessed to
Mhm.
have so many rich and beautiful relationships with people that I truly can pick up the phone and call and be like, yo, I'm going through this. You know,
Mhm.
I remember when my mother died, my mom died in January in the Midwest. And when I tell you, so many women dropped everything to make sure that they were there with me to hold my hand through my mother's funeral. It was just like, yo, this is amazing.
Mhm.
And and so they love me fiercely. And I know that I am able to completely be myself and bare my soul with them. So yeah, and like the main leader of that is Kenria. She's not here, but she is that person, one of the
Mhm.
people that like Karen get that shit raw. I know she tired of me. Like even when she go into her shit, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Let me come cry on your chest, you know? Like, I mean, it has been like, oh, I think about the day I got diagnosed with cancer, I literally call her unable to move. There have been times where I've like, when I was going through my divorce, I remember I left work and came to her house and literally like laid on her floor and cried like a baby. Her daughter, my goddaughter, didn't even know what was going on. She was just like, okay, I'm gonna play some of my favorite music for Auntie Munch so she can be better, you know. And so yeah, most of my girlfriends here are just, I have such an amazing relationship with, and I'm able to do that. And then my little sister, she's still in Missouri, and we had a typical big sister little sister relationship. I used to tell her she was adopted. We found her in the garbage pail at the park, and she was cute and wanted to bring her home. That kind of stuff.
Right.
But she is one of my, she's one of those people where I can bare my soul, and she gets all the bits before it's refined and before it comes
Mhm.
out. And I'm not a very refined person. Like most people get shit straight from the tap anyway, but like real raw, she gets it too.
You know what, man, and that what you just shared, and thank you for sharing that, because it's a lot in what you said.
Mm.
So much in what you said. I'm not even going to try to deconstruct it because it's so much. But you covered, I think, a lot of important points in just in general, but also what I put in the book, because you got to the point of the importance of community,
Mm.
And so in the book, I literally ask people to think about the communities that they are involved, whether it's their home, their work, or at school, if they're part of some type of organization, maybe even their physical community as far as their neighborhood, and for them to think about what you said, your allies.
Find your tribe. Find your
because
tribe.
we need allies. And so I ask people to really think about that. One, we need to know who they are. And if you find that you don't have anything to write down, when you're talking about your resilience, when you're thinking about how you can build in your self-care, if you don't have that community support, it becomes so much more difficult. And you don't have to have a long list.
Even if you have 1-2 people, like I am seeing my girls is a part of my self-care.
Yes.
Like being able to laugh until I cannot breathe is a form of self-care.
Yes.
As a sex educator, I preach orgasms are a part of self-care. Pleasuring yourself is a part of self-care. Just like that is seeing your girls and doing absolutely nothing but drinking wine till you can't see straight is a part of self-care. When I got diagnosed with breast cancer, like I said, I have a beautiful, beautiful community of people. But you're going through, I was 38 going through breast cancer. Like I ain't had no, I mean, not that I didn't have, I'd have friends, but no one understands it until you've gone through it. And I found a tribe of women. I call them my breasties. We call each other breasties, and we're all young and Black. And I want to say the group started out of a hashtag, like someone started posting her, chronicling her breast cancer journey on Instagram. Another woman found her searching hashtags. They became friends. And so our group has grown. And whenever people are diagnosed, I tell them, like, diagnosed with breast cancer, diagnosed with anything, I be like, go on Instagram, search the hashtag, go on Twitter, search the hashtag, because you are going to find people. And I don't trust people to be like, I don't like folks, I don't be around people, I don't like females, nah. We can't do this shit alone. We cannot do this alone. And so for me, like finding my tribe of breasties, like we chat on Marco Polo. Man, if somebody subpoenaed those damn videos, we be in all types of, because it started around breast cancer, and it's great to be able to, have people, because I will be like, what does this look like? Look at this boob, but also to just, be like, I'm so tired of people asking me how I'm doing, or somebody else bring me another chicken Alfredo to help soothe my soul on the screen. It's just, it's so important to find your community.
And the thing is, you're more than that. That might, that shared commonality may have been the impetus for you joining the group, or for you ladies getting together, but that's just one aspect of who you are.
And it's also helpful because you get to a point where, I was there with my girlfriends. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm always the friend in need. Now I turned into the cancer friend, and they're like, girl, you're not. But, you start feeling that way. And so with my breasties, I'm like, I am able to, we're able to talk about absolutely any and everything. And, I remember I FaceTime with a girlfriend while I was like in the height of treatment. I lost all my hair, face was all swollen because they have you on all these steroids, and I started having these crazy skin things. And I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and you could tell she was looking at me like, are you okay? And I could get on my breasties and they'd be like, this ain't nothing. Let's just keep talking. So it's nice finding something to rally around, but at the same time, that's not the only part of your relationship.
And you have communities that serve different parts of who you are.
Yes. especially with me as a sex educator. Like, so I've always been the girlfriend that everyone comes to with random sex questions. I have a personality where like I will literally be at a holiday party for work and somebody's wife has me in a corner like, yeah, well, he like it when I do this. And they're like, what's your name again? I don't want to make it seem like I have certain parts of like I'm not a full person because I show up fully in every relationship. Like the reason that I like started working for myself is because I want to be able to say ignorant shit in a meeting and people look at me and be like, okay, we got it. You know, like I was the height of my like I was so proud of myself a couple of weeks ago because I was in two separate work meetings. And I said, my pussy don't get wet if my bills ain't paid. And ain't nobody flinch. And I was like, you know what? This is how I know that I am serving all of Erika. But with that said, you know, it's nice having like, I have like my sex educator crew where we can like openly talk, like we have no problem sending clips of porn to one another because it's like this is a context of what we're talking about. And yes, my other girlfriends, I do it and they might be like, ooh, girl, you know, but so it's nice to have people that are communities that lean in a little bit more to certain aspects of your personality.
So my question to you is, so when you look in the mirror, who do you see?
Oh, I see my granny. So I see my granny because I have a little peanut head. And my grandma, she old and black. So she
that's such a black thing to say, peanut head. Yeah.
She used to sit and she used to rub. I mean, like I would see her doing it to babies after me. She'd sit and rub heads and shape the heads. And so I see my granny in my head. I see my mama in my smile. My mama had a gap in her teeth. So I see that. I also see a survivor. I see somebody that has been through a lot of shit and is still here, still thriving, still loving. And yeah, I like that.
I do. And I'll probably ask you a couple of more questions and then I'm going to let
you go. Of course.
You know, and I didn't actually have to ask you. Normally I talk about resilience and then I build up to looking at self-care, asking people what their self-care routines look like. But I think because of what you do as a profession, the therapy you've been in, and that I think you're just a very self-aware person, a very reflective person. And I don't know if you were always like that or throughout your journey you've become that type of person, but you've seamlessly weaved in very different strategies or actions that you take because you know what you need. And so you really have already kind of like, I think, really defined your self-care routine. So
thank you.
I will ask you this, and I think it's kind of like tied into maybe some of what you discussed, but talk about what you need to feel accepted, valued, and supported.
Accepted, valued, and supported. Oh, that's a good one.
I write in threes, even though I write my
I am a X, comma, Y, comma, and Z. So I totally get it. So accepted, valued, and supported. What do I need to feel that way? Wow, that's good. I mean, because you know how your English teachers like you can't use a word to define a word. That's kind of how I feel. But I don't want to sound like I know it all or that I got it all, but I don't need to because the spaces that matter, I already do. You know, like among my girlfriends, I am accepted, I am valued, I am supported, I am loved, I am lifted, I am honored, I am worshiped, you know, and we do the same for one another. And so outside of that, it's like, fine. you don't accept me? Okay, I'm gonna get through this little situation and I'm gonna go back home to my little community where everybody know me and love me and be like, you that bitch, you know? And so yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to answer just because in the spaces that matter, I have people that do. And yeah.
So the thing is so you do now, because you would deliver, either you sought them out or they already provided a need. So it's not necessarily that you don't have it, but you have to be conscious about what your needs are, so you make sure that they are being met. So that's really kind of what I'm asking. So you can have them, but do you know what your needs are?
Yes, and I will say that because I have, and I say this all the time, I have curated a life.
Good word.
That has people in it that support and love me, right? And so, and they have shown it in small ways and in big ways, because I'm the type of person, and it was a codependency, you know, I worked through it, but, you know, I still, you know, I show up for my friends. That is what I do. I am a rider. We ain't dying, but you know, I'm a ride home girl. Like we don't, like I am here in the paint with you. I tell my homegirls, look, I drive a big truck. It's dark. I got a hoodie and a scully. I'm down, you know. And so I've always sought out people that have that like loving and caring and supportive spirit. And I feel like I draw that out of people. And so some people are receptive, some people aren't. And if you're not, that's cool. But yeah, I know I need people that are going to show up for me, that are gonna, you know, and it's not like I like test people or anything, but it's just, you know, life happens. And so it's nice to have, I mean, my last job that I left, part of the reason I stayed there as long as I did was because I genuinely loved the women that I worked with. I worked in a small office. It was 4 Black women, and we genuinely loved one another. Yeah. And that came about because things would happen at work. And, you know, I was the youngest with a new child. And so, girl, go do what you need to do. I got you. I'm gonna do your job. You know, I'm gonna take care of you, you know. And I'm blessed to have had those type of people in my life. But yeah, they showed up, and so I show up, and it just keeps happening.
And so what you describe with your coworkers or your former coworkers, I mean, studies have shown it, right? Interpersonal relationships. People will stay at a job, even if it doesn't pay them as much money as they can go next door or next street over, whatever. It's the people. People can sometimes allow you to stay and you feel warm and welcome, or they have you fill updating your resume, right? Because you're ready to get out of there. And so those interpersonal relationships are important. Would you agree with this? As I was listening to you, do you tend to give to other people what you want in return? That's kind of what I heard.
Yes. And so the answer is yes. I give what I want.
Right.
I used to give and expect, but I've learned to not impose my expectations upon people. So I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to give, I'm going to love, I'm going to go hard for you. If that is not reciprocated, that is fine. I'm going to remove myself from that situation. I wish I was one of those people that could be like, oh, I just, you know, that's just an acquaintance. You know, like, no, if you're in my circle, you're in my circle, like, period, point blank. I mean, I feel like I have, through therapy, I have learned how to set boundaries and put things in place to keep me from like giving all of myself. Like the whole empty can't pour from an empty cup kind of thing. But yeah, I love to show how I want to be loved. You know, like I am modeling to you what you need. If you really want to know me, just pay attention to what I'm doing. Do the same shit back. Here, Erika, here's an apple. Oh, thank you for this apple. I just gave you an apple. I feel so loved.
So what's your love language?
Oh, girl. So
that is not in my book, but you know where we're going.
So yeah, so here's the thing. Me being a thug, I was like, my love language is acts of service, gifts. No, Negro. My love language is physical touch.
Yeah.
I like physical touch and words of affirmation. Like I would love receiving physical touch and being told like how much a bad bitch I am, right? And I do the same thing. Like even with my girlfriends, like we have pictures of us just like sitting on the couch, laying on each other, holding each other hands, doing, because that's just for some reason, like if I'm dating you, if I could like jump in your shirt and we just walk around together, that would be fine.
Oh man. I'm like, so that is like, that's too much for me. I'm not.
I know, well, that's the thing. I don't know who this person is. And like, I have no idea who I am right now because I used to like be like, ugh, that's too much, get off of me. But you know, you learn and change and grow. And I'm just like, I feel like 20-year-old Erika is looking at 40-year-old Erika like, bitch, what is wrong with you?
But you know, that is, I think it's really important. You have to know it really, that's been a lot of point on you knowing yourself. And I think sometimes that's what we do unconsciously. We treat people the way we want to be treated, but we're not actually telling them, right? We aren't being really clear. We aren't having those conversations. And so when they don't reciprocate in the way that we deem that they should, now we have an issue and they have no idea why we're pissed off.
I'm the type of person where I'm gonna show you and not say anything because you know, but when I get to the point, I'm like, well, damn. Then I say, hey, I would like this. I am very explicit. I make it plain. I make it clear. I don't do that beating around the bush shit. Like, nope. I am gonna beat you in the head with it so that you see it coming. You know what it is. And that's it. I'm not explaining myself a million times because you're an adult. You heard me the first time. If you cannot deliver, it is either because you choose not to or you cannot. Either way, I ain't around for it. Deuces.
So I think I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions. And you spoke a lot about your self-care, and you have, to me, to have really strong, deliberate routines in place. So in the book, I outlined like 7, and I don't remember all of them. So 7 different types of self-care. So emotional, mental, physical, practical, professional. I talked about that. Relational and spiritual. So spiritual could mean religion, but doesn't necessarily have to be. So it really means like spiritual. So considering that you really have a lot of things set into place, but projecting out, what is something else as far as self-care that you think is maybe missing that you may want to include in your self-care routine?
So when you mentioned spiritual, I was like, oh. I have grew up in church, and I went through a period where I was super involved in my Baptist church, and I still love the church, but I've slowly started getting more involved in African traditional religions. Because I have a real connection, as you hear me talking, to ancestors and people that came before me. So I need to put more time aside for that. Also, I think one of my self-care habits is a gift and a curse, right? Like I love being on social media, seeing Black women the hell out of life. Love it. But also I do, you know, like I occasionally fall in a trap where it's like, ooh, this person looks like they're living life so amazingly. And so then I have to remind myself, you don't show the shitty parts, right? So ain't nobody else showing the shitty parts.
Right.
And I feel like I spend time talking myself out of, talking myself through that. When it's just like, girl, if you just put the fucking phone down, excuse my language, put the damn phone down. I cursed again. Put the phone down. And you wouldn't even have, you done spent 20 minutes talking yourself out of this hole when you could have just avoided the whole damn hole to begin with. So yeah, I do think that I need to cut back more on social media and increase my, just sitting in meditation, sitting in prayer, all of that. Because I think that generally I'm a very grateful person. I recognize the blessings in life, but I would like to be a little more deliberate about it. Like I would love to be one of those people that wake up and write a list of 20 things you're grateful about. I'm not, but.
And that might not be your thing, and it's okay. And that's the great thing about the self-care, and we do like to talk about this, is that what your self-care routine and what you need is you, right? It's so specific to you as a person and to your
recognizing that it changes,
Yes.
I say all the time. So when I was going through my divorce, I lived in a different house and I had this huge, beautiful soaking bathtub.
Sounds great.
And I say all the time that my bathroom became my altar. Like I would literally come home from work, take off my clothes, sit in that bathtub. I drink wine.
Did you have candles? You do the candles?
I had candles. One time I had chicken. Like it was like, this is why I love a culturally competent therapist. I remember it was just a difficult session. So I'm leaving. My therapist is like, go home. She said, stop at Popeyes, get you some chicken, go home.
Love it.
Bathtub. And I was in the bathtub like that. So yeah, so recognizing that those things change. And as I said before, sex is a form of self-care. Orgasms are a form of self-care. I interviewed a woman, she said she masturbates every morning because an orgasm a day keeps her from killing folks. Whatever it takes, but like, don't neglect your I call them nibbly bits. Don't neglect your nibbly bits. Like orgasms are powerful, intense, and will help clear your mind. So yeah,
it's good. And you threw out cultural competence, and I don't want to miss that, because that's super important in every aspect. The medical establishment is huge. So when you talk about trying to find the right fit, any type of physician, educators with education, cultural competence, cultural proficiency is super important, because it could either, a lack of it could be a serious barrier to your mental and sometimes even physical health. So that's important. I'm glad you mentioned that and sharing that. Before I ask my last question, did you want to share anything else about your turn on or the broadcast for people?
Just listen, we just launched season 5. I'm not sure when this will air, but we just launched or are in season 5. So we have a lot of back episodes you can go through, and the podcast is the best. My co-host Karen, she was supposed to be here. She's not feeling well, having some internet issues, so she wasn't able to join us. But she is like, I tell her all the time, if the 40-year-old Erika could go back and talk to little 10-year-old Erika that was in the midst of like all this crazy shit happening, I would go back and tell her, you were going to have an amazing best friend. And that is Kimria, my co-host. And so it's a great show, but I also appreciate the fact that it documents the growth of our relationship. And so I encourage everyone to listen.
Yeah, thank you. And so my final question, I don't even know why I'm looking at this because I know the question, but what I always ask people at the end, and it's open to interpretation, and I am curious to your answer because I record what people say. I get the same answer repeatedly, but what is the color of your resilience?
Black. Black as fuck. Like black, rich. I mean, when I say black, like I think of like soil, like you know how you see potting soil is like dark and beautiful and moist and just ready to like grow. And so yes, black as fuck.
Oh man, you have no idea. I'm laughing so many different levels because I'm gonna tell you the colors I always get. Black. And it's said with such feeling, right? The same way that you said it. I also get purple a lot too.
I was thinking purple.
A lot of sisters talk about purple. One of my sisters, she said, purple, and then she went and talks about sparkly, and they really describe like how rich it is. And
like a good jewel
true meaning behind it. So it's like black. I get black, purple, and then I also get blue a lot. But really, it's purple and black that I've gotten so far, and is really with meaning because there are emotions attached to colors, whatever, and it's a lot of it's cultural, but it means a lot in your response. I could tell that you meant it from the depth of Erika,
from the depths of my soul,
from the depths of your soul. So thank you again. So we are at the end of another episode of Self-Care Saturday with Indy Jones. It definitely went longer than I thought because I've always had two interviews, but I was like, it's fine however long it lasts, but you're just, you are you. And
thank you. This was amazing. I had such a great time.
I love it. You said so much, and I'm sure that the audience appreciated your honesty, your candor, your humor. And there's a humor even in when you were sharing stuff that was very painful, and we all have had a lot of those experiences, and I'm sure people will learn from you and they will respect and honor what you share. So thank you, and thank you again for another episode of Self-Care Saturday. And again, like this video. Come on, Erika, how could you not like this video and subscribe? And thank you again